Welcome to the Wake Up Call podcast. I'm your host, Alicia Hopkins. By day, I work in corporate, but I have an obsession with all things personal development. So I became a life coach and started this podcast as a way to help others break free from living a life that's good on the outside and wake up to the one they actually want. When I got to my most uncertain place, all I wanted was someone to say, "Hey, Alicia, you're a little off course and this is what you need to do." That's what I want to be for you. This podcast is a place where I want to share my experiences and provide you with community, knowledge, and inspiration to make change in your life. Sometimes we get a little lost and need help course correcting. If this sounds like you, you're in the right place. Let this be your wake-up call. Now let's get started. Hey guys, welcome back to the Wake Up Call podcast. And this is not any ordinary episode you're listening to. My friends, today marks the anniversary of the podcast going live. February 8th, 2021, the Wake Up Call podcast was birthed into this universe. The first 3 episodes were released. I waited with bated breath, wondering, is anybody even going to listen to this? What the hell are they going to think is going on? And I just reflect on the year that was, and I am so grateful. I am thankful, and I am so appreciative of everyone continuing to tune in week after week. When I think about last year and this podcast, I feel like I was really just exploring the medium, right? Like I wanted to dig into all these topics, and it was throwing a lot of stuff out there and just seeing what felt right. And moving into this year, I have just such a clear focus on what it is I want to do with this show. But even more so, I'm excited to let you know that I have got some things in the work to be able to connect with you outside of the show, and I cannot wait. So think about trainings, think about coaching offerings, all kinds of good stuff, right? I want to continue this work that we're doing on the podcast outside of here, and I just want to connect with you in new ways. So I'm excited, I'm nervous, I can't wait, but I just feel more and more clear on who it is I want to serve, what I want to bring forward to all of you. And it's just been a really reflective time. As I think about what has been, I really think about like the past 2 years, right? And I don't know about you. And yes, I'm going to talk about the pandemic just for a second. I know we're all over it. But like many of you, 2020 was the year that I just had to slow the fuck down, right? Like we were all forced to sit with our shit, right? And I think that in 2020, we had the time to get like still with ourselves, but I think there was a little bit of a novelty that we thought like, surely this isn't going to really last, right? And here we are now and it's still here. But 2020 was the year that I started reevaluating some things in my life, as I'm sure many of you have too. And 2021 was the year that I really dealt with some stuff, right? Like, and did the work in ways I haven't done before. And I never really, it can sound really buzzy to say like, you got to do the work, but holy shit, you got to do the work, right? Last year was the year that I think a lot of things came to the surface for me. I was able to work through some stuff that was weighing me down. And as a result, I'm entering into this year just clear, like very certain of what it is I want to do on this podcast, what it is I want to do outside of this podcast to engage with you. And I feel very certain that my goal is to bring content that is helping you, right? I think back not all that long time ago, and I was the girl who from the outside looked like she had her shit together, had it all, right? It looked bright and shiny. The package was pretty. But yet I was the person experiencing debilitating panic attacks, anxiety that left me with a lot of rigid rules and how I needed to operate in this world, right? I clung so dearly to try to control. I was obsessed with fixing. And all this to say, I came to realize the reason why my anxiety came to where it was is that I did not have the recognition that I was fucking burnt to a crisp. I was overwhelmed and I was putting myself and what I needed last. And that is the person I want to serve moving forward in this podcast, in the trainings I'm going to be bringing forward to you, in the coaching that is yet to come. So it lights me up. It's what I know I was meant to do, and I can't wait to bring this all forward. So thank you everyone for being with me on this ride. Last year was so much fun, and there were milestones hit, and there were high times, there were low times, all of it, right? And I know now that in order to get to where you need to be, you've got to go through it all. So if you find yourself in a season where you are like, what the fuck is happening in my life? Just, I feel you, I hear you, and know that it serves a purpose, right? So that leads me into what I wanted to talk about today. As I mentioned before, not too long ago, I was that girl, that person who was just riddled with anxiety and didn't know why. I mean, it touched every aspect of my life. And it's crazy is because even as I say it, like, I feel like I'm time transported back to that time and I remember it. I didn't even know that something else was available to me, right? And I think many of you feel that way too. You are so caught up in the inertia of this life that has almost happened to you. And don't get me wrong, like, I'm sure, your life is good. My life was good, but I was missing from it, right? There were pieces of me that got buried under commitments, keeping up with the Joneses, needing to be a certain kind of way, wanting achievement, right? Like achievement overdrive, thinking that I felt perpetually on the quest of needing to get it right, like needing to and how I knew to do that was to keep taking more and more, keep trying to be the person that from the outside looked like she had it all together and, right, could do it all with ease. But then, right, if you were, at home with me, you could see like what a train wreck I was when I got home, because it's just like I collapsed. I couldn't do it. And I'm thinking of you, that person that maybe relates to that description I just gave. And I remember those times when I felt so fucking stuck, like could not even see like past like, my immediate happenings. And I knew that something needed to be different, but I didn't know how to get there. And here lies the critical misstep that so many of us make. We know that what we're in now is not what you want long term. So what do you tend to do? You swing to the complete opposite and you start crafting this dream life that looks the opposite of what you're currently in. And then you think, how do I do it? And you get paralyzed because you don't have the perfect little outline or plan routing you to all the perfect little steps you need to do to like make your life great again. And what I want to tell you is if you are in a state of feeling really overwhelmed, knowing that your life is good, but that something like in that gut, like it's almost like a fluttering feeling, something is supposed to be different in your life. I don't want you to get lost on the big picture goal, like the vision, right? The idea that you don't know what you want, but it's not this. So, you paint some other drastically different picture. I have one thing I want you to start noticing. Follow what makes you feel envious or jealous. And let me tell you what I mean by that. If you are scrolling your social media and you come across an account and every time you see it, you say, oh my God, this girl has it all figured out. And like you are drawn to follow the content, but then after a little bit, you actually find yourself feeling like angry, a little jealous. You maybe even start saying like, oh, well, I could never be that, because, you start picking out all the things that this person has that you don't. Hone in on that, because when you can start noticing what makes you like evokes different reactions out of you, that's a trigger, right? And if you get curious with it and you spend some time with it, you will find some clues, right? Maybe you look at that girl and it's that she looks super organized. She's super fit. She's meal planning and posting all these beautiful fucking meals, right? And the reason why it's making you angry is because you desire to have an element of that in your life, but it's not there right now, right? So you get fucking mad. You're mad when you see somebody else with it. That, my friend, is not something to like shy away from. Lean into that. Find the things. So when I say find your curiosities, find those things that evoke something in you, even if it's a quote unquote bad emotion, negative, right? Like that's something else I want to dispel is that no emotion is bad, but they can be clues. They can be breadcrumbs, right? So when you start following those little breadcrumbs, I'm telling you, the next step is revealed to you. And this is, to go back, I get really fired up about this because I remember being in that space where I was so overwhelmed. I knew something was wrong, but I didn't know how to get there. And I got so paralyzed by thinking that if I didn't know all the steps, it must mean like I couldn't figure it out. And this is where you start leaning into a little bit of trust. You start tapping into cues in your body that, like I said, feeling those energies. But if you find yourself wrapped up in knowing what you are currently experiencing now is not what you want, you're overwhelmed with how to figure out what you do want, it starts with small steps, small little freaking baby steps. When I think back to my lowest point, I'm talking, I was in my doctor's office a lot. I was in therapy a lot and just couldn't shake it. I knew that what I was feeling wasn't right, but I couldn't figure it out, right? Because I told myself my life was so good, right? Like everything was fine. And then you start going down the shame spiral and judging, right? Like I know you know what I'm talking about. You feel guilty that you're even dissatisfied with your life because you have so much. That, my friend, is bypassing, right? That's like dismissing that what you're feeling isn't valid. And I don't want that for you. So as I was saying, I think of me just a few years ago. And when I was at my lowest point, I just started saying, I know it's not this, but I have to try something, right? I remember what started for me was I first started to dip my toe in podcasts. I started finding some podcasts that resonated with me, right? So that was breadcrumb number one. I just knew that something wasn't right. I don't know what my next step is, but I just tried something. I listened to podcasts. I started bringing content into my life that began to light possibility in me again. And from there were new curiosities that came about. Because then I started hearing names of people that had written books. And then that book, I would find a book, right? And then it would lead me to some concept or something else. Like what I'm trying to say is that following just one thing that you feel compelled toward will lead you to where you need to go. Now, listen, it might not happen tomorrow, the next day. I'm sitting here a couple years removed out, and I don't say that for you to get discouraged and think, well, what the fuck? Like it's going to take me a couple years to get things figured out. No, it will not. What I'm saying to you is if you feel like you've got to have the pretty like itinerary, the plan, the outline of how you get from where you are now to like some ideal state, you're setting yourself up to fail. And it just starts with small, consistent steps in following the things that evoke an emotion out of you. And in time, it gets refined. You start collecting more data. You start finding the things that make you feel good. You start experiencing a different level of fulfillment. You start feeling a little less like the hamster in the wheel that you can't get off. And you start having clarity, possibility. You feel different. It really does evolve in time. So I hope this didn't sound like a sermon today, but I just get really reflective. Like I said, as I sit here on the year anniversary of this podcast being out in the universe, it's not lost on me that it took me a minute to get here, right? And I'm retracing all of the steps from the lowest of the low to where I feel now, very clear, very focused, very certain. And it's just that I want this for you. If this is that voice that you hear today that tells you you don't have to keep feeling this way and that you can have something different in your life, I just want to be that voice for you. So I just thank you. I thank you for being with me. I thank you for a year of just massive learning, growing, and now refined focus, right? Of how I want to continue to show up for you. So guys, thank you for being with me. Thank you for listening to this episode. Thank you if you're watching this on video. Today, I tried a new setup, and sooner or later, I'm going to get comfortable with this, but it's just exciting to see where the show is going, the content I want to bring you. And I just feel thankful to have spent this time with you, no matter what you're doing, right? I know for me, when I listen to podcasts, I'm usually on a walk, maybe I'm cleaning the house. So I love the intimacy that comes with podcasts, and I feel like I'm just right there with you. So guys, thank you. I love you. Can't wait to connect with you on a future episode. Bye, guys. Thank you so much for listening to the Wake Up Call podcast. If you liked what you heard today, I would love for you to subscribe and leave a review. It takes just a few minutes and does wonders for helping other people find the podcast. If you want to connect outside of the podcast, you can do so by following @Alicia D. Hopkins on Instagram. And if you really liked the episode you just listened to, do me a favor. Would you screenshot the episode and tag me? I would love to see what's resonating with you. Thank you for joining me today, and I hope today's episode helped you to see that you can wake up to the change that's possible in your life.